Well, there are a number of things. One is what Texas has always done, which is they have net energy metering. And so what they pay, you always pay the fixed cost of the system. And if you have your own solar generator, you use the energy. And if you don't use it, you sell it to the system, you get the energy price. And the energy price is the locational marginal price at that location whenever the energy is produced. It's the market price. And because of the way we price energy in the wholesale markets, it's transparent. It's no dispute about what it is. Everybody knows what it is. And so that's how it's done. And then the energy meter makes sense. For some reason, only Texas does that. Some states actually won't allow net metering. It won't allow any selling back to the system. Then there's some other options about buy all, sell all. That is, you buy everything that's produced, but then they have to buy everything back. There are a lot of issues about whether that works or doesn't work. I mean, I'm not terribly fond of that because it creates some tax issues in the U.S. that get complicated. But another is to start looking at the basic tariff structure and say, well, why are we doing everything on a volumetric basis or a variable basis or almost everything? Let's separate the fixed costs and the variable costs, and we'll have a two-part tariff, but the two parts of the tariff will actually reflect what the costs are and not reflect some other construct. And now you have people arguing for three-part tariff, which is, in addition to those two, to pay a demand cost as well. So far, the only state that's adopted the three-part tariff is Kansas. There are a few publicly owned utilities, municipally owned utilities, that have that, but there's increasing efforts to try to do that. And then, as I say, there's to start really just separating the fixed costs from the variable costs. And ultimately, with smart meters and smart technology, there's all kinds of things we can do to price. I mean, there's efforts now in New York and California to try to figure out ways of pricing distribution like we price transmission, with locational prices, with an independent system operator, and then that way you actually pay the costs or get the benefits of where your solar panel is located on a real-time basis. So if you're causing costs to be incurred, you're going to be paid less, or you're going to have to pay more for your fixed costs, and obviously the opposite would be true. So try to create real price signals that are meaningful, market kind of price signals that are meaningful. But the other thing that's clear is solar really needs to have the incentives to be efficient. And those incentives include some kind of dynamic price. Whether optimally it's real-time pricing, but suboptimally it's some kind of some sort of peak pricing or critical peak pricing, or even time of day, although time of day is a little primitive, but still. Something that's time sensitive that actually reflects the realities of the marketplace. And that's the way it ought to be priced, because that's really what the value of solar, that's its market price, is the market. And that, if you do that, that provides incentives to invest in storage, to invest in solar tracking panels so that they shift and follow the sun. I mean, one of the things that's ironic in the United States is almost all solar panels face south. Why? Because that will produce the most kilowatt hours. If they west, they produce fewer kilowatt hours, but they produce them at times when the prices were higher. But they don't do that because the incentive is just produce kilowatt hours regardless of whether the system needs it or not. So providing those kinds of economic signals will make it a lot more efficient and bring it really into the mainstream. The problem, I think, with net metering is it turns what ought to be an attempt to make adjustments to the marketplace into a mad race for subsidies. And a lot of the rooftop solar business is chasing subsidies as opposed to being more efficient, being more of a market sensitive, providing more value to consumers. So those are the alternatives, I think, that are under consideration.